Good evening, interns and tutors. Let me please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, Tabang, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, interns and tutors, and thank you so much for making time to attend this workshop tonight. My name is Tabang Segolela. I am a manager in the CPD and registration department, and I'm responsible for intern CPD or intern portfolio of evidence. So there is a welcome slide that is displayed there. Please look at it just to familiarize yourself with some of the notes that are important for this workshop. I will go through them. So the first one is says, to ask questions, please use the Q&A function on Teams or the comment section if you are joining using YouTube. The session is 3 hours. Please stay with us until the end to get all the information firsthand. We will have a 10 minutes break in between. And towards the end of the workshop, you will be requested to complete a survey to confirm your attendance and rate the workshop. And lastly, the presentations are available on the website. So with those few notes, I just want to say, please stay with us until the end. I will be taking you through the first presentation. So the workshop is made up of 2 presentations. The first one is the presentation that will be facilitated by myself, and it's more on taking you through the requirements of internship. And then the second presentation will be facilitated by the assessors and moderators of intern portfolio of evidence, and they are with us tonight. So, right. So we will look at our first presentation. So the first part is the introduction. So we warmly welcome you to the 2026 SAPC internship program, and we are really excited to have you as our interns. And please note that this marks an important milestone in your professional journey, and it will offer you the opportunity to translate your academic knowledge into practical experience. And we urge you to make use of this opportunity because it comes once in a lifetime. So our program for tonight looks like this. So we will have the first presentation, which is going to be facilitated by myself. From there, the assessors will take over until 7:30, when we will be taking a short break up to 20:28, and then from there we will continue with the presentation until 20 minutes to 9, and we will have a Q&A session at that time. From there we will close at 9 o'clock. So the outline of my presentation is as follows. We will look at the legal framework, the pre-registration evaluation, and we will also navigate the SAPC website, basically the intern page. We'll look at a number of functionality there. And then from there, we will look at what delays release from internship. And we will also look at the portfolio of evidence reassessment, appeals, and consultation procedures, and unprofessional conduct. And we will slightly share with you the 2026, in fact, is the 2025 portfolio of evidence competency statistics, and also how to apply for community service, and lastly, how to contact the SAPC office. So when we're looking at the legal framework for pre-registration, this is informed by the Pharmacy Act 53 of 1974 as amended. I know we're all familiar with this act. So here we're going to first look at registration with council as an intern. What is required for you to be registered as an intern? First of all, we expect you to be placed in an approved premises, and you should have signed a contract with a registered tutor.
Sorry,
and paid
Tabang.
the application. Yes, Net.
We seem to have a technical glitch. Can I ask you to stop sharing and to share your screen again?
Okay, I must stop sharing and share again.
Share again, yes, please.
Okay. Are you able to see my screen now?
I can see your screen. Brianda, Adele, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it now.
Great, you can continue. Thank you, Tabang.
Okay. So I was still on the registration requirements, just to say that there are basically 3 requirements that you need to meet for you to be registered as an intern. The first one is to be placed in an approved pharmacy, and then you have also to sign a contract with a registered tutor and pay the prescribed fee. So once you have all this in place, you can submit your application on an online platform to the office, and you will be then registered as an intern. And remember, internship it takes a minimum of 12 months of practical training before you can be registered as a pharmacist. And then the scope of practice of an intern. So the scope of practice is the same as the pharmacist, but in case of an intern, everything should be done under supervision of a tutor. Remember, you are still undergoing training, so you can't finalize any activities within the scope of practice of a pharmacist without the approval from your tutor. And then interns in academic institution, manufacturing, and wholesale pharmacies, they are required to complete 400 hours of supervised practice, and that should be done either in a community or institutional pharmacy. And remember, when you go for the 400 hours of supervised training, your tutor remains responsible for your training, and we urge you to arrange prior to the period. And then we also urging you to at least spend 5 consecutive days in the pharmacy, and always remember to keep records of everything that you are doing in the pharmacy, because that will help you when you are compiling your portfolio of evidence. And the supervising pharmacy at either the community or institutional pharmacy that you will be completing your 400 hours of supervised practice, they are expected to complete the declaration of 400 hours, as well as the progress reports. So make sure that before you leave the facility where you're doing 400 hours, that is done, so that you don't have to be following them over and over again. And then now we're going to look at cessation of contract. Internship contract may be ceded to another registered tutor at the same pharmacy or at another approved pharmacy or institution. So meaning you can change a tutor within the pharmacy that you are working or in any other pharmacy, as long as it is approved to train interns. But for that to happen, there are requirements that you need to meet in order to avoid delays. The first one is that you need to make a submission of the online application to Pharmacy Council, and you need also to provide a new contract for practical training that is signed by the intern and the new tutor. And there is also a fee that must be paid for this application. So this must be submitted to the Office of Counsel at least 7 days prior to the session date. We're saying 7 days because we're trying to make sure that we don't delay you. If that can reach us in 7 days, we are sure that by the time you start with the new tutor or at the new facility, your registration or your session application will have been completed. And there is a note there that session will be approved only once the new premises is approved and the prospective tutor is registered with the council. So it's the responsibility of the intern to make sure that all these requirements are met. And then removal of name from the register. So here we're saying in terms of section 11 of the regulations relating to the registration of a person and maintenance of the registers, the registrar may remove from the register of pharmacist interns the name of a pharmacist intern who has completed their internship to the satisfaction of counsel or who has not completed, their internship to the satisfaction of counsel or who has discontinued their internship with the consent of counsel or who no longer complies with the requirements and conditions for registration as a pharmacist intern or is deceased. So those are the possible circumstances where a name may be removed from the register of counsel. And a person whose name has been removed from the register will be notified thereof, and any registration certificate issued shall be deemed null and void. So you should all take note of that. But what is important is that if your name has been removed, there is a restoration process in place which allows you to get your name restored to the register of interns or of any category of pharmacy personnel. So in that case, a pharmacist intern whose name has been removed from the register may have their name restored to the register by submitting to the registrar a duly completed application form for the restoration of their name to the register, acceptable documentary evidence that they have complied with the conditions under which they may be registered as a pharmacist interns, and acceptable documentary evidence from the tutor to the effect that they have resumed the internship. So that is what is required for you. And there is also a fee that needs to be paid. I'm just mentioning it because sometimes it's confusing some of the interns, which is indicated on the website. You will see it when you're submitting your application. And now let's move on to the pre-registration evaluation. So interns are required to meet 4 requirements in order for them to be deemed successful as interns. So the first one is the pre-registration examination, which is written on an online platform, a portfolio of evidence submitted on the CPD online system, and the progress report submitted online by the tutor, and also the completion of the 365 days of supervised practical training. So once all those requirements are met, then you can be released from the internship and be registered as a community service pharmacist. So what do we mean when we're saying you need to complete an online exam and you must be successful? So an online open book examination will be administered, and that is made up of 120 questions, 1 mark each. And the general practice is made up of 70%, and the calculations accounts for 30%. And the pass mark there for general questions is 60%, and for calculations is 60%. With regard to the portfolio of evidence entries, so interns are expected here to submit 6 competencies standards from each of the 6 domains. And it's important to note that for domain 5, all interns are expected to submit competency standard 5.3, meaning this is a there is an assessment there that once you have submitted your CPDs or your portfolio of evidence, it will be submitted for assessment, and the results will be released as per schedule, published in the intern and shooter manual. We are also going to look into that schedule not long. And results for entries submitted after submission deadline will be released on the next submission deadline or on the next release date, and resubmit all entries not yet successful. So this is important. In case you are not yet successful, you need to go through the assessor's comment and make a resubmission. And then at the end of the day, we're saying you are competent once you are successful in all 6 entries. And then there are also progress reports that need to be submitted, and the number of progress reports to be submitted depends on the sector of or the category of pharmacy where you're doing your internship. So for institutional and community, there are 7 progress reports. Manufacturing, wholesale, there are 9. And then academia, there are 3. And remember, there is also declaration of 400 hours for academia and manufacturing as well as wholesale. And for academia, you need to have achieved your master's qualification and submit a proof of competency of favorable reports from the tutor. So those are what each of the components of a pre-registration requires. And then here is the submission deadlines for the portfolio of evidence. So we are having a number of deadlines. The intention is to afford interns an opportunity to be successful in their portfolio of evidence entries. So the first column is providing the days for submission of portfolio of evidence entries by interns. Please make sure that you observe those dates. And then the second column is the dates for verification of portfolio of evidence entries by the tutor. So tutors are also expected to observe these dates. And if both the intern and the tutors are observing the dates, then they will receive the results on the date that is provided there. We had scenarios where interns will submit on the date of verification and their tutors will verify on the date of verification. The fact that interns submitted after the submission deadline, that will delay the release of results. So please let's make sure that we observe these deadlines so that we can receive the results on time. And on the this submission deadlines, you will see that there is the dates that are provided on a brownish or goldish color there. So those are the submission dates before the examinations. So interns who will meet the requirements after the release of the results on those dates in brownish color will be expected to pay a late booking fee. So we're urging you to make sure that you do your things on time to avoid you having to be penalized for being late. And then the dates for the exams are provided there. The ones for March have already passed. And this were basically to cover interns who couldn't make it from 2025. So the 2026 interns will be able to sit for the exam that is scheduled for the 5th and 6th of August 2026, and also on the 21st and 22nd October 2026. So please make sure that you always familiarize yourself with all those dates. They are very much important for you. And there is some points there for you to note. Firstly, according to the council policy, appeals must be submitted within 1 month. We are still going to look at the appeals. And then entries must be submitted by 12 p.m. on the last date of submission. Entries that are submitted after 12 on the last day of submission will be assessed in the next assessment cycle. So this is important because in case you experience some challenges with the system, by that time, by 12, before 12, the office could have an opportunity to assist you before we knock off at 4:30. So please make sure that you do your things on time so that you don't get disappointed. And then interns are also advised to submit 6 portfolio of evidence entries within the first 6 months of their internship. This is to allow you an opportunity to make resubmission in case there is a need, so that by the time the examination date arrives, you are ready. And entries submitted after the 30 November 2026 will only be assessed in January 2027. So please take note of that. Meaning if you submit on the 1st of December, you will only receive your results on the 22nd January of the following year. And again, while we are still on this slide, please note that submission of the 10th and subsequent portfolio of evidence will attract a fee of 327, which is also published in the intern and tutor manual and also on our website. So please make sure that you take note of the information that is provided there, and you can also refer to the intern and tutor manual on page 33. And so we will be having the portfolio of evidence feedback workshops, and the workshops are scheduled to take place on the 28th of May, which will be on a Thursday in the evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And on the, I'm sorry, that workshop of the 28th is in the morning, and then the one of the 24th is the one that is scheduled in the evening. So remember, the purpose of this feedback workshops is to respond to interns' portfolio of evidence queries, and also to share the portfolio of evidence assessment experience, and to guide interns on how to improve the quality of their portfolio of evidence entries. So it will be important for interns to attend, because all the queries that they are or might be experiencing will be addressed during that session. And the deadlines for portfolio of evidence submission to qualify for exams. I think I've already shared this information when we were looking at the deadlines, where I was saying take note of the dates that are provided in the brownish color, because those will be the dates on which you will be affected by the late booking penalties. So the dates of the exams are also provided there, and the normal dates for of portfolio of evidence submission deadlines, and those that will attract the late booking fees. And then what is important here is for interns to note that all exams bookings must be done online before the closing date. A late booking fee will be charged after the closing date until 14 days before the exams. So the booking dates, or when the bookings are opened, you will be notified, so that you can start submitting or your names for you to sit for the exams. And then this information is also provided in the 2026 intern and tutor manual. So exam entrance requirements. the first requirement is that interns should be in their 6 months at least. So interns must be in their 6 months of internship and must have submitted at least 6 portfolio of evidence entries online and be successful in at least 3 entries and have completed the practice examination. So remember, the practice examination is very much important as well. And then the intern should also have submitted the progress report. That will be those for, the 3 progress reports for 12 weeks, 24 weeks, and so forth. And then interns who are in their 9th month of internship, they will be expected to be successful in all 6 portfolio of evidence entries and have completed the practice examination and have submitted the 4 progress reports. And so those are basically the requirements when you are in your 9th month of internship. So this means that interns who registered in January, when they sit for the August examination, they should have met the requirements for 6 months. And then when you go into sit for when you want to sit, or when you are in your 9th month of internship, you are expected to meet all the requirements that are provided in that role, because that is what is required. Otherwise, if you're not meeting any of those requirements, you won't be able to sit for the exam. And then the last role is providing reattempt at the examination. So what is required? Interns attempting the examination for the second time or subsequent attempt must be successful in all 6 portfolio of evidence entries in order to be allowed to sit for the examination or for the re-examination, and tutors must have submitted the relevant progress reports according to the intern's date of registration. Remember, no exam fee for the first and the second attempt. A fee will be charged on the third and the subsequent attempt. And tutors will have access to interns' overall results. So please take note of that disclaimer as well. Okay, so we are done with the examination requirements. Now we're going to look at the website and focusing on the intern page. So this screen is showing you how you are to log in or into our website. And once you are on the SAPC website, this will be the landing page. And you just know, before you see this page, there will be a page wherein you are to indicate whether you are a registered person and owner and so forth. So in our case, we are registered persons. That's what you will select, and then you will land on this page or on a page where you are then to indicate your role, whether you are an intern, a pharmacist, and so forth. And all of you, because those of you who are interns, then you will end up in this page after you have indicated your role. So when you are on this page, this is where you will be able to access the intern and tutor manual for 2026. That will be accessed there where it's written manual. And then you can also download the manual by clicking here where it's in blue. So if you click there, you'll be able to download the manual. And sorry, there is also an intern CPD user manual or user guide that we are busy revising, but we will be uploading it not long. This is where you will get it. So currently, I think we are having the slides for the workshop here. Don't be surprised, but the manual will be available sometime in April. And then when you are on this page, you are also able to access some of the documents that will assist you when you compiling your portfolio of evidence entries. So please take note of the documents that are available for you and feel free to make use of them. And then in case you want to log in, there is a login tab there. That's where you must click, or you can also click up there where it is highlighted in red, and that will take you to the secure site. So for you to engage with the CPD page, you need to log on to the secure site. And then when you are here, this is what you will see. The dashboard will show your finances, online applications, and everything that you need, the workshops and events and everything. And then for this workshop, we are more interested about the CPD. That's what I've highlighted there. For you to access the CPD page, you're going to click there. And then if you are a new intern and you have never engaged with the system, this is what you will see. When you click on CPD, you will be requested to complete the annual declaration. And for you to do that, just click on the tab that is circled in red, which says go to annual declaration. And that will take you to the page wherein you will be able to complete an annual declaration by clicking on the new declaration. So when you are on the new declaration, once you have clicked there, this is what you will see. There are three areas or questions that you need to answer. Let me say, sections that you need to answer. So the first one is employment. Here you just give us your employment information, and when you're done, there is a continue tab at the bottom there. You just click there, and then it will take you to the next section, that is the domain competencies. So here, that's where you will indicate the competency standard that are relevant to you. So when you click on can you see there is a select here? When you click on select, it will give you the option wherein you will choose whether you do that competency standard as part of your activities, depending on the sector you are. If you're not doing it, you will also indicate that you don't do that. So you just select the options that are applicable to you. So you will have all the all the 6 domains. You will have to select from the 6 domains, and then the competency standard for each domain will be listed like they are here. So can you see here we are on domain 1, that is public health. When you're done, you will go to the next domain 2, domain 3, domain 4, and so forth. And then for you to move to the next domain, you just click on the continue at the bottom. And then when you are done with all the 6 domains, then you will go to the last section, that is assessment criteria. So here is just indicating that you will be assessed on the 4th step of a CPD. And then if you are happy with everything, you're just going to accept here. You don't have to select anything. You just have to go through what is the information provided there, because it's guiding you on the assessment criteria. When you're done, you accept, you click the accept, and then you will land into this page wherein it will say, according to your selection, you are a non-practicing intern. So a non-practicing intern is the one who have selected, I do not do this, in all the competency standards for the 6 domains. So it means you're not doing any of the scope of practice of a pharmacist. Therefore, the system will declare you as a non-practicing. So if you are agreeing with that, then it means you are not an active intern. So in case you have selected, I do not do this as the options for all the competency standard, please select I disagree there, so that you will be the system will take you back and you to the second section of the domain competencies, and then you must select those activities that are applicable to you as I do this. So once you have rectified that, you will come on to this again. And then if you are happy, or here it will say you are now a practicing intern. Then if you are happy, you agree. And then it will take you to this page that is displayed on the right hand side, which indicates the year on which you did your declaration, the date on which your declaration was done, your role, and then in your case, it will show an intern, and then the status, and then it will show that you are a practicing, and the designation, it was done by yourself. And then it also says you are required to submit 6 CPD entries. And then here it will say the declaration has been completed, and then update the declaration. This one you can use in case maybe you change in the sectors. Let's say you were in manufacturing, and then during the period of your internship, you get an opportunity at the hospital, pharmacy, then you need to update because some of the things that you were not doing there, you are going to be expected to do as an intern in that sector. So please don't forget, you update here, and then your annual declaration would have been updated. And then once you are done with the annual declaration, then you will be able to complete your portfolio of evidence entries. So this is the CPD dashboard. This is what you will see when you are done with the annual declaration. So under my submission tab, this you'll be able to see all the entries that you have submitted. And then under the CPD cycle, this provides you with the CPD cycle. So when you're working on your portfolio of evidence entries, you don't have to leave the site. If you want to remind yourself of any of the steps of a CPD cycle, they are provided under this tab. And then the domains and competencies are also provided under this tab. And then the archive, in your case, there won't be anything archived here because you have started with your doing or submitting your portfolio of evidence for the first time this year. So the archive, usually that's where your portfolio of evidence will be stored maybe next year when you go to to be registered as community service pharmacist. So at the moment, it won't have anything, but it's also important to note that you won't have access to the archived entries. This is only for the office use. And then, so I've already touched on the cycle. This is how it looks like. And then in case you need anything, you have that. I've also touched on the domain. What I want to highlight under the domain and competencies is that when you click on this domain number 1, that is public health, when you click on it, it will give you all the competencies under this domain. So if you want maybe to refresh yourself on what are the domains, the competency standard there, you just click on the domain, you will have access to all of those. And then when you are ready to submit your portfolio of evidence entries, this is where you are expected to go. Remember, the first step is the reflection. So you're going to click on reflection as the first step of a CPD cycle. And then it will say identify a new learning need. So this is where you're going to click. From there, it will take you to a page like this. And then you will be expected to select the domain which you want to submit an entry on, the competency standard that you have selected. And then you will also type your reflection title, and then you will select a learning trigger, and you will also be able to provide you the description of your learning title or of your reflection. And then when you are done, remember it shouldn't exceed 1,000 characters. When you're done, you click on the Save tab there, and then you will then see this window, a window similar to this, which says reflection title saved. Would you like to continue to planning. So if you don't want to continue to planning, you just click no. Remember, the title has already been saved. You're not going to lose any of your work. But if you want to continue to planning, which is the second step of a CPD cycle, you will click on yes. And then if you have selected yes, this is where you will, if you have selected no, then you will be at this, the next page that you will see will be this one. But if you don't want to make any changes, you can just close. If you just don't want, or you are not able to continue, you can close. But if you didn't proceed to planning because you wanted to make some additions to the reflection step, so when you are on this page, you just click on edit, then you will be able to edit your reflection. And when you're done, you just click on proceed to planning. It will take you to the next step. So these steps, for each of the 4 steps, you will have an opportunity to select whether you are proceeding or not. And you will also have an opportunity to edit in case there's something that you want to update. I didn't repeated those things for the other steps, but take note of that you can do that on all the 4 steps. And then when you're done with your reflection, then you will go to the planning side. This is where you will also provide a description of your planning, and also you will indicate the timelines there and the mode of learning. So that will be done here, and then you can save and move on to the next step if you are ready to do so. And then under the implementation step, you will also be providing the description and also indicating the duration of the activity and so forth. And then here, when you're done, when you click on save, it doesn't take you to the next step. Remember, at the implementation step is where you are to upload your evidence. So when you're done providing your description, you will now be expected to upload your evidence. So you will select, when you are here, you will be able to say browse. Then you'll be able to go to select your document that you want to upload, and then click on upload. Remember, only PDF document can be uploaded. So if your document is not in PDF, unfortunately, you can't upload it here. And then you will also be able to view your document once it's uploaded, just to make sure that whatever you have uploaded is the correct document. In case you have uploaded the wrong document, you are also able to remove it and replace it with the correct one. And then when you're done, you just click on next, and then it will take you to the evaluation step. So this is the last step of the CPD cycle. And then you will also select and provide your description, and then you save. And if you want to continue later, you will continue later. If you want to continue to the next step, then you will be able to do so, because it will say, okay, maybe let me mention this. If you have saved and then you selected you're going to continue later, it will save it, but it will have a status of awaiting submission. This is just saying your entry has been saved, but it has not yet been submitted for the tutor to verify. And then when you go back to it, you will see that you will have an option to submit for verification if you are happy with everything that you have done. In case you want to edit some of the work, you will go to reflection and to all the 4 steps which we have touched on. And then in case you don't want to submit this entry any longer, you can still delete it. So you can only delete an entry that has never been submitted for assessment. Once it has been submitted, unfortunately, you can't delete it. And so that's all with regard to the submission of an entry, because from tutor verification, once it has been submitted for verification by the tutor, the intern won't have access to this entry anymore, and the tutor will verify and submit for assessment by the tutor if by the assessor if everything is in line with the requirements, or the tutor is happy with what you have provided. And then in case the tutor is not, they are able to return the entry to the intern to make necessary corrections. So there is also the plagiarism detection system for intern portfolio of evidence entries. So this system at the moment, it has been disabled because it's still undergoing maintenance. But the slides are there because once the maintenance is done, it will be made, or it will be enabled, and you will be expected to submit your entries for similarity check. So once it is enabled, each of your entry will be subjected to plagiarism detection prior to submission for tutor verification. And at that time, the system will check for similarity between your portfolio and the portfolio of evidence from the current and past interns. And then tutors will also have a view-only access to the report without the ability to modify or exclude any matches. So meaning once your entry has been submitted to the plagiarism detection system, a report will be generated to indicate the percentage similarity. That is the report that the tutor will be able to view. So this is the process for submitting for your portfolio of evidence entries for plagiarism detection. So this will happen at the step before submission for verification by the tutor, meaning when you are done with your 4 steps, you will be expected after the evaluation step, you will submit your entry form, similarity check, and then here you will be, before it can be submitted, you are expected to accept the EULA, turn it in, and then once you have accepted that, the entry will be submitted for similarity check, and then a report will be generated which you will be able to view. And what is important for here to note is that the maximum acceptable similarity score is 20%, meaning anything above 20, it means you are not yet, it will be investigated. And in case there is evidence that you have plagiarized, then your name will be submitted to professional conduct for disciplinary measures to be implemented. So once your report is acceptable or is within or 20 or below 20%, you can submit to your tutor for verification. And then the SAPC website, Intern Portfolio of Evidence Results. Remember, we're releasing the results on the date that were shared on the schedule that I've presented earlier. So all the entries will come up with a status of submitted for compliance, whether you are successful or not. So we're urging interns to click on this status, and then that's only then that they will be able to see a successful under assessment status. If they are successful, it will be indicated that you are successful. And then there will be a report, and we also urging you to open the report because the assessor may have advised you on other things that you need to take note of with your subsequent submissions. So remember, submitted for compliance does not mean you are successful. You need to open and see the assessment status. And then in case you are not successful, once you click on the submitted for compliance, the status will change to awaiting submission. So this is a sign that you need to make a submission because you are not yet successful. And then under assessment status, you'll also be able to see not yet successful. And then the report is also provided there. Then you will be able to access your entry by clicking on the reflection, and then you'll all be able to go through all the 4 steps. And then when you are done, you can submit for verification. So it's important for interns to download the assessment report, yes, because sometimes once you start making amendments to your entry, sometimes interns, they lose this report. So please, every time when you receive your results, make sure that you open the report and you download it. In case you miss it, at least you would have saved it somewhere. And then these are the things that delays the release of interns. I think we have touched on them. Late submission of entries, failing the pre-reg examination, incomplete progress report, and not having completed the required 365 days. And then on the slide, what I want to highlight is that interns must learn to take responsibility of all their portfolio of evidence-related matters, and no parent or family member should contact SAPC regarding portfolio of evidence-related matters, because it is hard for us to deal with parents who are not interns, because they won't understand what we're talking about. So interns, we're urging you to take responsibility. In case you need something from the office, please initiate that request and we will assist you. And then the reassessment of portfolio of evidence entries and appeals, they are provided in your intern and tutor manual, page 42. Please make sure that you go through them. They are straightforward. And in case you want to make an appeal, you will follow all those requirements. And then in case you want to make a consultation with an assessor, it is important to note that this can only be arranged after an intern has attempted an entry and being successful at least on 2 attempts. On your first attempt, unfortunately, you are expected to discuss the report with the assistance of your tutor and respond to all the comments from the assessor. And then if the intervention hasn't assisted, is then that you can request to have a consultation with your tutor. And then some of the actions that will be considered as unprofessional conduct, I've already touched on: plagiarism, harassing the assessors, and so forth. So please make sure that you behave and conduct yourself in a professional manner. And here we are sharing the portfolio of evidence compliance statistics for the 2023, 2024, and 2025 interns. So you can see the percentages have been increasing. In 2025, we had an 84%. This is as January this year. The percentage, I think, has increased to about 86 following the results of the release of results this week. So we're just trying to show you that it is possible. Please commit to your work and you will be able to succeed. And then in important information, the annual fee for internship are payable by the 1st of June each year. And please make sure that you meet that requirement. And please also note that your progress report is made available to interns on your secure site. Your employer, they can also have access to your progress as an intern, and your tutors as well, and the Department of Health, the ICSP, for the purpose of placement for community service. And applying for community service, interns are to apply online for community service on the address that is provided there, or on that address or the website. So all the information will be provided on that website. And remember, any other information will be provided by the Department of Health, since they are responsible for placement for community service. So they will provide you, there will be an information during the course of the year, a session where you will be given more information about community service placement and requirements in general. Then this is how you can contact the office by submitting your request. And then the other thing that we want to mention is that we are having our 4th National Pharmacy Conference this year, which will be held on the 11th to the 13th of October 2026 at Durban ICC. So you are encouraged to register for this conference. And remember, the early bird registration closes on the 31st May 2026. And this brings me to the end of my presentation. We will take the questions at the end of the next presentation. And thank you so much. Over to you, Adele.
Good evening, colleagues, and thank you, Tabang, for your presentation. My name is Adele Nudia, and I will be taking you through the next part of the presentation. With me is Dr. Hubert, and she will do the second part of the presentation. And we hope that we can answer all your questions tonight to make the whole portfolio of evidence submission process easier for you for this year. So first of all, we're going to have a look at the outline for tonight. So first of all, we're going to talk about the different terminologies. We're going to look at what competency standards are. We're going to have a look at how you select a domain, how you select a competency standard. We're going to look at the different parts of the portfolio of evidence, the cycle, which Tabang has spoken about, the assessment criteria. We're going to have a look at the evidence. Dr. Hubert is going to have a look at the example. We're going to talk about the assessment of your portfolio of evidence, professionalism, confidentiality, and then we're going to show you some challenging competency standards and give you some guidelines how to make the correct choices or good choices to be successful in your portfolio of evidence activities. So let's go. So important resources for you guys for this year. You can have a look. Please download the manual and have it handy when you do your portfolio of evidence activities. You'll find the criteria for assessment of your entries on page 35 to 37. And that is the same criteria that we as assessors and moderators use to assess your portfolio. So that is your memorandum to use your checklist. To make sure that you have fulfilled all the requirements. You'll have a checklist on page 41 to 42. We'll show you an example. You can find all the competency standards on pages 62 to 84. And then other resources is the South African Pharmacy Council website. And don't forget your tutor and other pharmacists in the pharmacy and previous interns. You can also talk to them about their submissions. So terminologies, you'll sometimes see your assessor talks about a competency standard or a CS or a behavioral statement or a BS, and then you have to know what it is to understand the comments that we give you. So first of all, we have a domain, we have competency standards, and we have behavioral statements. So if you look within your manual, we've decided to show you the various terminology with domain 2. So domain 2 is the big one. It's safe and rational use of medicine. Then under the domain, you will find your different competency standards. You can see we have 2.1, 2.2, and it goes up to 2.8. And beneath the competency standard, you have various behavioral statements, the BS, and that's A, B, C, D, E. That's very important because when we go on with the presentation, we will tell you you have to address all the behavioral statements or 75% of the behavioral statements, and you have to choose competency standard 5.3. So it's important for you guys to understand the terminology that we use for the submissions. So the 6 domains, we have public health, we have safe and rational use of medicine, which is number 2. Number 3, supply of medicine and medical devices. Number 4, organizational and management skills. 5, which is the compulsory one, 5.3, and that is professional and personal practice. And the last one is education, critical analysis, and research. And it's important to know that these were developed specifically for South African context and for all the practice settings where you are able to complete your internship. So the domains are organized clusters of the various competencies that you as an intern should possess. So a competency standard, as we said, it's part of a domain. If you look at the competency standard, you can see how it applies to you. It has an introduction, the various competencies, the various behavioral statements, the entry level. You as a pharmacist intern is on the entry level. Then as you go on in your practice, 10 to 15 years, you'll go to intermediate or advanced practice. And then there is a tick box. So it's important for you to go through the initial parts of the competency standard to make sure that you will be able to complete this competency standard and that it is applicable to you. So there you can see an example. We have a competency from domain 2. So the competency standard is 2.6, which is pharmacist-initiated therapy. You can see the behavioral statements. That's the A, B, C, and the D. And then you have a tick box to say, does this standard form part of my current practice? So you have to make sure that if you're working in manufacturing, you will not choose pharmacist-initiated therapy unless you do your 200 for your 400 hours within a community pharmacy, for example. So make sure that it's relevant to where you are performing your internship at that stage. So there you can see the complete structure of the competency standard. So at the top, does this domain apply to me? And there you can see it applies to all pharmacists who play a role in ensuring safe and rational use and provide medicine to patients to improve health outcomes. It's very important for you to read this, especially for some of the competency standards and for some of the domains. It includes some information that you need to make sure that you fully address the competency standard, but we will talk more about that later on. So there you can see domain 2 has patient consultation, patient counseling, patient medicine review, medicine and medical device safety, therapeutic outcomes monitoring, pharmacist-initiated therapy, pharmacovigilance, and clinical trials. So say, for example, you're working in community pharmacy, then you probably won't be doing any clinical trials, and then 2.8 will not be relevant to your practice setting. So what is continuing professional development? So the cycle is continuing professional development, but the term portfolio of evidence is used to describe the activity that you as an intern are completing. So hopefully you did one in your undergraduate years, and now as an intern, you will do a portfolio of evidence within the CPD cycle. So what is a CPD? Or what is continuing professional development? It's a cycle. We'll show you the cycle again. It's a process by which us as registered persons maintain and enhance our competencies throughout our professional careers. As you know, there's always new medication, new techniques, something that change. So we as professionals have to keep up to date with everything within our profession. It encompasses a range of activities. So it's formal education, supplementary education, just new information, a new product, anything new that you learn is part of continuing professional development. And a CPD enables registered persons to develop in the area of practice and show that we can demonstrate competence. And remember, it's not only for you as interns, every pharmacist must do 6 CPDs for the year. So now you're going to see the cycle, and we're going to talk about each part of the cycle or each step in the cycle. And we talk about reflection, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And we will be going through each of these individually for you to understand the process. And you have to complete all 4 phases for every portfolio of evidence activity that you submit. So first of all, we're going to quickly look at the assessment phase of the cycle. So remember, we talked about the checklist. So please go and have a look at the checklist, but I will be showing you parts now. So when you get it done, it's mostly done on a scale of 0 to 3. I'll show you in the checklist now. To earn 3 marks, you must meet all the requirements as stated in the checklist. In addition, No spelling or grammar mistakes, please. Everything should be properly punctuated and trade names should be capitalized. Pharmacy Council website does not have autocorrect, so please check everything carefully before you submit. So what we usually tell the students is do your write-up in a Word document, do your spell check, and then from there, just copy it onto Pharmacy Council's website to make sure that it is professional. So you can see we get a 0 if it's not met, 1 partially met, 2 met, and 3 fully met. But you will understand that now when we go through the various steps, and you can find that checklist on page 35 to 37. So the first step is the reflection part. And with the reflection, you have to have a learning title. So please make sure that once you've decided what your activity is about or what your learning need is, you should give your activity a title that is descriptive of your unique activity and describes your specific case. So it should be relevant to what you want to learn, be related to the competency standard you have selected, and it should describe what you are planning to do. So please do not copy the wording of the competency standard or one of the behavioral statements. Make sure that your activity is a reflection of, or your title is a reflection of what you're going to do. Dr. Hubert always tells the students, if you take a book from a shelf and you read the title of the book, make sure that you know what's inside of the book. And that's the same with your title. So the reflection, ask yourself, what do I need to learn? So what is my own learning need? Describe what I need to learn and how it relates, or does it relate to the competency standard that you've selected? How do I know that's what I need to learn? So you must give us a trigger. And what do I hope to achieve after completing this learning need? So that's the 4 things or the 4 aspects that you should address within your reflection. So make sure that it's personal. I need to learn this. I need to be able to do this. And that you do not describe the learning need of the patients or the pharmacist assistant basic, what they needed to learn. We want to know what you needed to learn. So the learning need must be your own and it must be related to the competency standard. And this will determine the choice of the competency standard and the behavioral statements. But as we move on, it will become clear to you. So this is the checklist I was talking about, and you can find that, as you remember, on page 35 to 37. And there you will see there is every part of the portfolio of evidence cycle. You can find the mark range in this criteria. So if we look at the learning title, to get your 1 mark range, it's original, it's descriptive, and it's related to the competency standard. So you can see if you just copied the wording of the behavioral statement or the competency standard, you would not have been successful in your learning title. The same for the learning need. If it's irrelevant, it's not your learning need, it's not linked to the competency standard, you will get a 0. If it's a general description telling us what the role of the pharmacist is in relation to the competency standard, you will get a 1. If you have 2 of the criteria correct, clear learning need according to the competency standard and a trigger scenario, or what you hope to achieve, you will get a 2. And to get all 3, you have to have all the criteria. So you can see it's very easy. Just read through your learning need, have the checklist next to you, make sure. Do I have a learning need? Do I have a trigger scenario? And have I included what I hope to achieve after I have completed this competency standard? And it's important to link that to the competency standard that you selected and not the activity. So say, for example, you wanted to learn how to do patient counseling, and the counseling is about hypertension. Your learning need should not be about hypertension, but your learning need should be patient counseling. But that will become clear to you as we go along. So there's the checklist. You can use the checklist and the grid together to make sure that everything is there. So is there a title? Is it short? Is it specific and related to the competency standard? Is it concise? and my own words. And does it describe my activity? The reflection, have I clearly stated what I need to know? I need to know or learn this. Have I stated how or why I identified this learning need? What happened that made me realize I need to know this? And have I made sure to include details of the planning, or not details of the planning in this section? Apologies. So now we go to the planning, and the planning section should provide sufficient detail. You must tell us exactly how am I going to learn this? You now have a learning need, and now we want a plan. So what am I going to do to learn this? So write the planning in future tense. I'm planning to consult. I'm planning to do. I'm going to do this. So we want it in future tense. Refer to the behavioral statements and structure your planning accordingly. Remember, you have to address at least 75% or above of the behavioral statements, but we will speak about the exact quantity a bit later on. You have to provide specific details. So say, for example, you're going to do compounding, then we want to know, I'm going to consult the GPP section 2.1.8 because that's the minimum standards for compounding. Or I'm going to consult the pharmacy SOP for cold chain because that provides the minimum standards I have to comply with, or what the case may be. So what evidence can I submit to support my learning? And that is what you plan to consult. So make sure that you mention all the resources that you are going to use in your planning. So don't only describe what you plan to do, but say, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? Why are you going to do this? And when are you going to do this? So carefully select the primary learning trigger and activity, and again, refer to the checklist. The implementation stage, so that's the third phase of the cycle. So there you're going to describe what you did. So I consulted the GPP. I consulted the national drug policy. So now it's in past tense. So now we want to know exactly what you did, when you did it, how you did it, and where it was done. So you have to make reference to the evidence in the implementation section, and you have to link it to the behavioral statements. And again, please make sure that you use the criteria and that you use the checklist. So keep the story. I did this, I consulted, I had my campaign, or what you want to describe. Then remember, as Tabang said, at the implementation phase, you have to upload your evidence, but we will be talking about evidence a lot later in the presentation. So the fourth step in the cycle is our evaluation. And the focus in evaluation is the future tense, I will. So what have you learned, first of all? How have you applied your learning? And we want the example there. What was the impact of the learning that you had, or the new skill that you learned? How did it impact your practice? And we want the example or identification of a future learning need. What else do you want to learn? So say, for example, you learned how to compound something that's not easy mixable, or a powder that had to be dissolved or put into a cream, or what the case may be, and then you want to learn how to do sterile compounding, for example. So we want a future learning need, and it must be something new, and it must fall within the same domain. So don't tell us you learned how to use you learned how to apply the cold chain SOP, so next time you want to apply the stock receipt SOP. If you can apply a SOP, we want a new skill that you want to learn. So you can see it's important to provide us with a specific example of how you applied your learning. So there you can see each phase of the cycle. There's 4 phases, and it's important Skraf is af. Die gebou is stiknog donker. Okay. Bye.
Good evening. Please stay tuned. We're just experiencing a short glitch. We will continue with the workshop. Just stay tuned. Thank you.
I phoned Randa. We have a power failure. I'm in the complete darkness. University. But that over, yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Yanda Yubar. Mrs. Nadia just let me know that she had a power outage where she is, so it's complete darkness with her, but I will continue until she can join us again. Okay, so as Mrs. Nadia said, so the CPD cycle should be completed, and each phase should be completed for every single one of your portfolio of evidence entries that you submit. Next slide, Adele, or let me just quickly. Okay, there we go. So the whole approach to complete your portfolio of evidence activities or entries should follow a stepwise approach. So you will first select your domain, then you will move to select a competency standard. Remember to read all the behavioral statements. You start with the CPD cycle, then you enter and submit online for tutor verification. The tutor verifies and submits online, and then you need to check for feedback. But remember, as the Bang explained, you must complete the annual declaration first. And remember that if your tutor has verified your entry, make sure that they submit your entry before the deadlines that was published. If for some reason there's something that your tutor thinks you need to amend or to work on, they can always send it back to you. So this is the approach that you will follow when you complete your portfolio of evidence entry. So once you have chosen a competency standard, you must check that it is appropriate for your practice setting. Read through all the behavioral statements. That is very important because that is what you need to show us that you can do, what you need to provide evidence for. Then you need to decide on the appropriate and sufficient evidence that you need to submit, and then you need to follow through. So as you complete each phase of the cycle, make sure that what you write is relevant to the domain that you have selected and the competency standard. So the requirements, as the Bang spoke about it already, you need to submit 6 portfolio of evidence entries or activities, 1 from each domain. You need to be successful in all 6 of them. And please do not submit all 6 entries at once. Otherwise, you might find that you are not successful, and then you need to submit all of them again. And remember, from the 10th submission, you will have to pay the fee. So it's better to submit 2 for the first round when you submit, and then check the feedback and the comments of the assessors and the moderators, and then work on to improve your submissions in future. So for each domain, you need to choose 1 competency standard. Before you start, read all the behavioral statements carefully. And then the important part is, if a competency standard has 1 to 3 behavioral statements, you need to provide evidence for all of the statements. But if there are more than 4 behavioral statements, 4 or more, then you need to provide evidence for at least 75% of them. And important, consult your manual for the details of the behavioral behavioral statements. And very important, your portfolio of evidence entry must reflect your own individual work. You are not allowed to submit any group activities. So now we're going to move on to the evidence, the criteria for the evidence, and there's these 5 criteria which we will talk about individually. So your evidence needs to be annotated, it needs to be current, valid, authentic, and sufficient. So let's start with evidence must be annotated. Annotation means that you need to give meaning to your evidence. So that's a mechanism to give us that meaning, to tell us and to show us why you have included this and how you have used it. It must be easy to read and legible. It must justify why it was included. You must plan and structure your evidence so that it is meaningful. And very important, you must provide links to the behavioral statements. So it's important that it tells us a story. And the story that you are telling is, what have I done to show behavior and to show this new skill that I have mastered? So it's not just a label, it's not just a single word or a scribble on the evidence or no lacking to behavioral statements. So let's look at what we mean with meaningful annotation and an annotation with no value. So you can see there's 2 dates here, both 20 January 2026. And on the right-hand side, the annotation is, this is the date of the prescription. Okay. It doesn't tell me anything. Why is the date important to you? On the left-hand side, we have the same date, and the annotation is for the prescription to be valid, it must be presented for dispensing within 1 month after it was written. This prescription is thus valid. So you must make sure that you describe the importance of that information that you highlight or that you noted on your evidence. Let's look at this annotation. You can see this is an invoice. So how should I annotate this? You can see there was written that it's the pharmacy name and the address, there's the medicines ordered, the batch number, the expiry date, the date and the account number. But what does this tell me? So how should I annotate this in a better way? First of all, it was handwritten and it was not very clear to read. Now we have typed it, and you can ask yourself the question, is this good annotation? Still again, we just see its batch number, expiry date, quantity received, invoice from the supplier, products ordered, and then at the bottom, this medicine was stored after it was received. But it still doesn't tell me what you did with the batch number, with the quantity, with the expiry date, etc. So if we look at this annotation, you can see here's a lot more information and detail provided. So at the top, I check the name of the pharmacy on the parcel to confirm that it is indeed for my pharmacy. There's a linking on the right-hand side to the behavioral statements. There's the name. I check the medicine name, strength, pack size, and price. There's a batch number. Why is the batch number there? What did I do with the expiry date? And then at the bottom, the parcel was received in good order. The medicine was not damaged or short-dated. It was captured onto the system. It was stored on the shelf in alphabetical order with the Schedule 5 medicine as per SOP. So you can see this is a much clearer annotation on evidence. If we move to current, so what we mean with current is that the portfolio of evidence activity must relate to exposure to the competency standard during your internship period. So your evidence must therefore be collected during the internship year or years. So don't include something that you did last year as an undergraduate. If you worked in a clinic or you did rotations, don't include any evidence of that. It's fine if you include evidence from notes or textbooks, etc., but then it needs to be annotated as such, but not other evidence, prescription collected, etc. So evidence should also be valid, and validity is the most important aspect of the evidence. If it's not valid, then it doesn't matter if it is annotated, current, authentic, or sufficient. So the evidence must pertain to the specific competency that's being addressed. The resources that you use should be recent or up to date. And you can refer to Council's website for up-to-date legislation. For example, the scope of practice, rather refer to Board Notice 4733 with the rest of the description instead of the GPP. And if your evidence is factual or incorrect, or there's a calculation error in your evidence, then your evidence is deemed not valid. So make sure that your evidence is always valid. So, for example, if the competency is about how to fry an egg, but your evidence is about how crispy the bacon is, then it is of no value, and then your entry will not be successful. Authentic. With authentic, we mean it is your own work. It is not fabricated, and it is not AI generated. And we can clearly see if evidence is fabricated, or when you have asked chat or any other AI bot to create or to generate evidence for you. So please make sure that it is your own work. Sufficient. We did speak about a little bit about the 75% and the number of behavioral statements. So as I've said, if there are 4 or more behavioral statements, then the evidence submitted must cover at least 75% of those behavioral statements. So make sure that you have enough evidence, but the focus should be on the quality of your evidence and not only on the quantity of evidence. It's advised that you don't use the same piece of evidence for more than one competency standard. And here I specifically refer to a prescription. Say, for example, you selected 3.4, which is dispensing of medicines, and you submitted or used a prescription, then you cannot use that same prescription again for competency standard 5.3. So make sure that you have there's sufficient other evidence to get in the pharmacy. Please do not submit an entire legislative document or textbook, and do not add evidence that may have clauses for intellectual property. For those of you in manufacturing, make sure that the evidence and the resources that you submit is not, there's no intellectual property that you might breach for that. So we're quickly going to do a poll, and I would like you all to click on the link or scan the QR code, complete the poll. And the question there relates to the number of pieces of evidence for 9 behavioral statements. We're going to give you a few minutes. Natalie will also post the link in the Q&A section where you can also click on that link. Adele, can you please just click on the link so that it opens? We don't see it at the moment. Okay, there we go. So if you choose a competency standard that has 8 behavioral statements, how many behavioral statements do you need to satisfy to achieve 75%? And as you can see, there the majority of you said 6, which is correct. So it's a basic mathematical equation that you must do. Okay, so let's move back to the presentation. Quickly gonna take over here. Okay. So if we move on, your evidence, you can use photos. And if you use a photo, it's always better to um, have your photo date stamped. And it's meaningless to provide a photo if it's not authenticated and that you identify yourself, because it can be anyone in that photo. But remember, you need to maintain patient confidentiality. If you use pages from the SAMF, SAMF or the GPP, etc., make sure that you reference the name of the document, the edition, the page number, and what does it show. If you just put in pages of a document and you don't annotate it properly and you don't say why it is there, it doesn't show us anything. Maybe just that you know how to use a scanner or a photocopy machine. Same with delivery notes. What does that show? Just think about the invoice that I showed previously. Yes, the stock was delivered, but who received it? Don't just sign on it and not annotate it, because unannotated signatures are meaningless. You can also use electronic evidence. For example, websites. Say, for example, you want to use Pharmacy Council's website. There you need to provide the website name, the publication date, and the pages that you used, and also the date that you have accessed that document. The same goes for if you want to use the World Health Organization or any other, or the EM guidance or any other relevant electronic evidence, then you need to properly reference or cite that resource. It's always good to put yourself in the assessor's shoes before you submit your evidence and ask yourself, what does this show? And most of the time, it will point to the need for more discussion or annotation, or you think it's fine. But often, if you submit it and it's your own work, then you know exactly what you did with that. So I always tell the students as well in undergraduate and the interns and my own interns, ask someone else to look at your evidence and tell you if this makes sense and if it is clear what you want to do or what you want to show with your evidence. Please do not provide unclear photos or screenshots of evidence. Try not to upload it upside down. It's not professional. If your evidence is unclear or illegible, we cannot assess that. We cannot assess something that we cannot read. Very important, your evidence must be in one document. It is just to avoid confusion and to ensure that you not upload it in the incorrect order and that everything is there. And then annotate. That is very, very, very important. You need to link your evidence to a specific behavioral statement, and you need to show how the evidence satisfies the behavioral statement. Identify your own signature. Put your P number there, put your name, put your title, as well as that of the person that is supervising you. And remember, we don't know you. So we don't know who you are. And it's important that your evidence should follow in a logical order. Don't put if you do compounding, the final product first, and then the SOP last, or the prescription last. You must just make sure that it is logical. It just makes it easy for you as well as for the assessors. So let's think about the kind of evidence that you need to provide or if you are providing information to a patient versus when you are providing evidence to a group of people. So if you are just providing information to a patient, then maybe a prescription. What else should be included there? The history of the patient, his medical history, uh, the signs and symptoms. So a clear description of why the patient requested your service. If you are talking to of providing information to a group of people, then you can include an attendance register, the presentation that you made or the pamphlet that you used, the reference materials that you use, feedback that you receive from the group. But remember, if you include an attendance register, you need to add the presenter name, in other words, your name, the date that this took place, as well as the venue. Where did this happen? And there should only be one presenter. So we said no group activities, so only one presenter. And then the feedback on the presentation, it should reflect the knowledge and the understanding of the audience after the presentation, not them rating you as a presenter. So how did they experience this activity? Did they understood what you said? Was it relevant to them? And remember to annotate and link to the behavioral statements. So what if I'm consulting with a patient? Maybe the patient history, prescription, or the request from the patient. The blue copy, the label, the reference material that you've used. But now you are going to consult with the doctor. So you see, it's totally a different background and environment that you are working. So then, obviously, the reason for your consultation, was it the prescription there was something missing, or it was incorrect, or you couldn't read what the doctor wrote? The reference material that you used, the telephone number of the doctor, the time of the conversation. And it's always good to have someone that can say they've witnessed you consulting with the prescriber or with the doctor. And I have seen evidence where the intern provided a photo of themselves holding a phone and say, this is me consulting with the doctor. But you see, that is not very clear evidence to know that that actually happened. Remember that your references, if you consult with a doctor and with patients, should be scientific. Do not use Wikipedia, do not use AI. It must also be annotated and linked to the behavioral statements. And remember that you need to include page number, the edition, the name of the resource that you used. I did show you that example of to refer to resources and to websites. So say, for example, you will be working with data. What data did you collect? What was the reason for the data collection? Was it a screening report? Was it data analysis that you did? And just to re-emphasize the checklist again, we have spoken about the checklist. Make sure, go through the checklist and see, do I have sufficient evidence? Have I annotated my evidence? Have I annotated it with the behavioral statements? Does it match the behavioral statements? Is my evidence clear? And have I made sure that I have that all patient identifying details have been hidden? So it's just use the checklist for every submission that you do. So in summary, your evidence is proof of what you did. So it's what I did. It's not just reading an article. It's not a theoretical scenario. It's not witnessing someone else do something. You must convince the assessor that you have performed the activity. It must be professional. It must be neat, clear, and not just a note scribbled on a prescription. So let's quickly go to poll number 2. So again, please click on the link or scan the QR code and complete see if you can complete the question. This relates to a scenario. So the trigger incident is I was asked to participate in a public health campaign, and which domain would this learning trigger align to? And then we list a number of them there. So you can just see if you can answer that question. And maybe Natalie can just give us the results again.
Sorry, Rianda, we're asking to give a little bit of time for those that are on the
Okay.
other platform. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to just give some extra time.
Yes, you decide how much time you give the ones on YouTube. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Natalie, please just show us the results. Yes, so as we can see there, the majority of you indicated domain 1, which is the correct answer. You can remember, I don't know if you can remember, but domain 1 specifically pertains to public health issues. So therefore, domain 1 is the correct one. Okay, let's move on again, back to the slideshow. Okay, so let's quickly just, not sure if, yeah, let's just quickly look at the structure of the competency standards. And we have domain 1 here, which is public health. So you can see there we have the short introduction. Always read through the introduction to see what is covered in this domain and what it entails. Then we have the competencies. This one is promotion of health and wellness. It's competency standard 1. And then we have the 4 behavioral statements from A through to D. Provide advice on health promotion, advice on disease prevention and control, healthy lifestyles, and participate in public health campaigns. Remember that talking to individual patients does not constitute a public health campaign. So whatever you do, you need to make sure that you target the larger community and that it benefits the larger community. So it's public health and promote health and wellness and to the public. Okay, we have another poll. For this poll, you will need to provide a title, a learning title for this activity that we are busy with. So I'm going to give 30 seconds to a minute that you can just quickly click on the link so that everyone can participate. Let me just show you the question in the meantime. Choose the most appropriate learning title. So you can just answer that question, and let's give a few seconds longer. Okay, Nat, I think you can share the results. Okay, so you can see there also the majority of you selected the first one, participation in COVID-19 health campaign at Steve Biko Academic Hospital. That would be the correct one. If you just say promotion of health and wellness, that is the exact same as the competency standard title. So therefore, you would not get any marks for that. And promotion of COVID-19, you are definitely not promoting COVID-19. So promotion of it's not clear. It doesn't tell us what you're going to do. But the first one is descriptive, and it tells us exactly what we will see when we go through this activity. And let's continue. Okay, straight to another poll. Let's just quickly take a look at this question. Which is the best learning need based on the competency standards? I need to learn how to teach, I need to learn how to provide advice and participate in public health campaigns, or I need to learn how to speak in public. So think a bit about this one. We'll give you seconds and then we can look at your answers. And that's, I think we can look at the results. So all of you said, I need to learn how to provide advice and participate in public campaigns. That is the correct one. If you only wrote, I need to learn how to speak in public, then it wouldn't have been completely correct. But if you combine it with, I need to learn how to provide advice and participate, then it is more acceptable. Let's go back to the presentation again. And I think here we are going to take a quick break. Tabang, are we on time? Can we take a break, 10 minutes, or what do you suggest?
Okay, thank you, Rianda. Yes, we're going to take a 10 minutes break. Let's be back at 10:50. I mean at 19:58, 2 minutes to 8, so that we can start. Thank you.
Perfect. See you then.
Thank you. The time is now 19:58. We can proceed. Thank you.
Colleagues, welcome back. So let's just move on. Okay, so we are still busy with the same example, and now we're going to look at the reflection and how you should or could describe this activity. And we know that the content is outdated, but this worked example is intended to show you how to complete an entry. In the past, when we provided a current example, then that is what we received when we assessed. So yes, we know it is outdated. So the learning title that we selected is Participation in the COVID-19 Health Campaign at Steve Biko Academic Hospital. What triggered the learning need? Or the learning, my pharmacy manager asked me to participate in a COVID-19 health campaign, and I did not know what this entailed. My learning need is then I needed to learn how to provide advice and participate in public health campaigns. And then what do I hope to achieve? I hope to be familiar with the steps required to plan and successfully participate in a public health campaign. It's not necessary for you to write what triggered the learning like we did here. It's just an example to show you that this is what you need to provide to get the full marks and to be assessed as requirement fully met. With the planning, so this is just an idea. I advertise the campaign to attract the target audience. I plan to make a poster using relevant sources, and then you name your sources and the relevant details, the chapter, the page number, the website, etc. I will include information on health promotion, healthy lifestyles, and disease prevention and control, and you link it to the different behavioral statements. I will verify the poster with my tutor, use the poster in my campaign, get feedback. And then, for example, you can say you will ask the participants to sign the attendance register and to provide feedback on the presentation. I will obtain a participation letter from my pharmacy manager or from my tutor or the RP. And then I plan to participate in the COVID-19 screening using the screening tool. And then why? I will do all of this in order to be able to participate in the campaign. So you see, it is in future tense. You must list your resources. You must link it to the behavioral statements, and you must indicate why are you choosing this plan. So now we move to the implementation. So how did I do this? What did I do? How, when, and where? And again, how? So I consulted the following sources, and then I list the sources there, and I link them to the evidence and the behavioral statements, as well as the World Health Organization policies and guidelines and the SAPC website. I formulated the poster to use in the campaign, and then you link it again to the evidence. I presented it at the COVID-19 screening area at the entrance of the hospital on a busy outpatient day. Then you can link it to evidence E for the attendance register. Remember, very important, you need to maintain patient confidentiality. And then I did the screening using the screening tool, link it to evidence F, and then you write about the feedback from the supervisor and the letter of participation from the health and safety manager. So you see here, you describe exactly what you did. Okay, so there's another poll that we can attempt, and this poll, you need to type for us some examples of the evidence that you think will be suitable for this competency standard. And I will give you a little bit more time to do this. You can type more than one example that you think you can include. And then we will ask Natalie again to show us the results. But first, I'm going to give you some time to do this. As you can see, there's a few of the respondents or the responses. The majority say a poster. We have attendance register. We have photos. We have a pamphlet. We have audience. Please don't just block out their faces so that we cannot identify them. Participants list, a brochure, the register, the attendance register, attendance list, approval to have the campaign, yes, that is also important. Feedback forms, attendance register, photos. You can provide a picture to prove all the actions you conducted. In the attendance register or the attendance list, poster of the campaign. Yes, you need to advertise that campaign, so you need to provide. You can provide that that campaign or that poster. Okay, so I think if I look at the responses, I think that you have a good idea of the type of evidence that you will provide in this or for this activity. So you did mention a lot of these that's on this slide, the poster, the pamphlet, the presentation. If you do a presentation and not just a poster, the documents, the source documents. I noticed that that was not mentioned in your answers. So yes, the documents that you use to compile the information, that you use to compile the poster or to give the information to the patients, should also be included in your evidence with annotations and linking to the behavioral statements, and then say how did you use it and where did you use it? Cross-link and cross-reference between your different pieces of evidence. Letter of participation, important that you highlight your role, the attendance register. Please remember to maintain patient confidentiality. And then where does this all fit in above? How many behavioral statements did you cover with your evidence? So make sure that you cover at least 75% of them. And do not say this evidence or this is evidence for A, B, and C. Tell us what is for A, which part is for B, which part is for C, and how did you actually provide that advice and that information. In the evaluation, I've noticed on the previous screen where we went through the 4 steps evaluation, they said must be in future, but that is not correct. It must be in past tense because this all happened. You're now looking back and you evaluate what you did and what you learned, how did it influence your practice, how did you apply, and then what should the future learning need or what future learning need have you identified. So I learned how to provide advice and participate in public health campaigns. I am now more confident to volunteer to participate. and I'm more aware of public health issues. Applications, I subsequently participated in a diabetic screening day. So you see, it's again a public health campaign related activity. It's not I provided information to a patient that didn't that was not aware of COVID or that didn't know how to prevent COVID. It's got nothing to do with COVID, but it's got to do with the activity that you did. And then my future learning need, I would like to learn more about providing advice to other healthcare workers. So I did now for patients and for the public, but how should I provide advice to other healthcare workers? What type of information should I give them? Okay, so after you have submitted, then your portfolio of evidence activity gets assessed and you will get feedback from the assessors. So there will be comments and they will be dated, so you will be able to see when was this done. If you for some reason need to resubmit, then you can see what was the previous comments, what's the new comments. There will be positive that will acknowledge that you are on the right track or that you are doing things correct. There can be negative comments, feedback, but then we will add specific pointers with regards to what you did wrong, how can you improve it, what went wrong, what do we expect, what didn't you do, and especially with regards to the evidence annotation, that is almost 90% of the case is you'll get a comment if you were not successful that your evidence is not annotated, it's not sufficient. Yes, so or that you've breached patient confidentiality. And use the comments as guidelines for next entries, even if your entry is well, that was assessed is that you were successful. So that's why the bank said, download the report, look at the comments, and use that for future submissions. And remember, we have feedback sessions later in the year. Where we will also look at and talk about what we've seen, what's the common errors that you make, and then you will always also have an opportunity to ask questions. So this is just an example of a typical assessor comment. So on the evaluation page, you might see you should express your future learning need in terms of the competency and not merely in terms of your specific activity. So let's say you did 3.5. 3.5 is compounding. So now you have already compounded the cream and you've showed us that you can do this. So your future learning need cannot be another cream that you want to do. You have mastered that skill. If you still need to learn how to compound a cream, then obviously you have not met the intended outcome of the activity. So in future, you may want to learn about compounding another kind of product, or you want to learn how to use a ungarator. So it must be something different than what you have done. So think about the difference between the competency, the skills that you learned, and your specific activity throughout the whole cycle that you've done. So you might always also see, and the same goes for the future learning need. Yeah, we spoke about that. The example, as I've mentioned in the evaluation slide, the previous slide, that your future learning need or your example should pertain to the skill that you have mastered. So if you want to say, you can say that you did not show application, or you should provide specific examples of application of your skill. That can also be a comment. Then it means that we need to show how you've applied the skill. A few days later, if we take 3.5, I was able to compound a morphine solution for a patient. So then we know that you have applied your skill. Okay, so if you were found not yet successful, then you need to resubmit a new portfolio of evidence activity within that domain. Remember that each resubmission is a standalone activity and it's treated as a new submission. So don't copy your previous text. You can't submit today that you needed to learn how to compound a cream, betamethasone in UAE cream. And in 3 months' time, when you resubmit, you still need to learn how to compound a betamethasone in UAE cream. So it should not be the same as the previous text. So start with a new activity, unless the assessor recommend that you can correct it. So therefore, you have to look at the comment section. And if I just think about all the thousands of activities that I've moderated and assessed, most oftentimes you will have to start completely over, unless it was just patient confidentiality that was breached. There might be certain cases where if you just annotate properly and tell your story, then it will be fine. But most of the time you need to add evidence, then you have to start over. Otherwise, you can't submit now without an attendance register, and 2 months later you submit with the attendance register for the same activity. Then you will get the question, where did that attendance register come from now? So to maximize your chance of being eligible to write the intern examination, make sure to submit early and regularly, because resubmission, if you have to rework or redo an activity, it takes time. So make sure that you submit early and regularly. And look at the guidelines for conditions when you resubmit the application procedure, the timeline. Remember, you can request a remark if you think that you were assessed unfairly. There's a fee to be paid, but then you must submit the exact same activity. So to prevent the need for further resubmission, make sure to follow the comments or the recommendations from the assessor and or the moderator. And remember, your activities are sent to the same assessor. So if you resubmit, it will go to the same assessor. And all 6 your CPDs or your portfolio of evidence activities go to the same assessor. You don't get different assessors for different activities. All of them, if Mrs. Nordia is assigned as your assessor, then you are stuck with her for the duration of your internship. So don't simply resubmit without attending to the reasons for not being successful. And remember, we can see the assessors and the moderators can see the previous submissions, previous what you have submitted, so we can see if it's the same, if you have made changes or not. And we can also see the previous comments that was made to know if it was addressed. I did spoke a bit about the remarking of an activity. So if you're dissatisfied, then you can apply for a remark. But there are certain conditions, so you must do that in writing within 1 calendar month following the official release of the results. Then a non-refundable remarking fee is payable upon submission of the application, and you must submit proof of payment. And then the same portfolio of evidence entry that you have previously assessed must be assessed unchanged. So you should not make any amendments or changes or corrections, because the original one will be remarked or reassessed, and then within 14 days you will get the results of that outcome of that resubmission. Then if we talk a bit about professionalism, make sure that we spoke about what Tabang mentioned, the plagiarism software. So as soon as that system is back up and running, your activity will be submitted against that. We do not allow any AI generated content. And as we said, obviously it must, your entry or your activity must reflect your own word. If we suspect or if we see that there's any irregularities, we will refer it to council's legal department, and there will be penalties. They will be applied and they will be severe. Um, and see your portfolio of evidence activity as an opportunity for you to further develop your professionalism and the way you practice in the pharmacy. Um, and this from next year, you will call it a CPD if you're a community service pharmacist, but this will be with you for the rest of your career. And so see it as an opportunity and not just a hurdle. We did spoke a bit about confidentiality. It must be maintained at all times. Make sure that you block out the patient's name in all relevant or possible places where it can appear. So make sure that you check the prescriptions, the trailer labels, the Schedule 6 registers, the attendance registers. If you breach patient confidentiality, you are automatically not yet successful in your activity. And very important, confidentiality only applies to patients, not to doctors, hospitals, or other facilities. Remember, we can look up any doctor's information if they are registered with the HPCSA. Um, that is information that's in the public domain. The same with the hospital name or facility's name. So patient confidentiality or confidentiality is only only applied to patients. And make sure that the name is completely obscured. Sometimes you can see here on the right-hand side, untidy scribble is ineffective. Make sure that it is blocked. If you use a block like on the left-hand side, make sure that if you convert your evidence to PDF, that block doesn't move. Because then even though you intended to cover the patient's name, you still breach patient confidentiality if we can see that patient's information. We often get questions, what information should I cover? And I always say, anything that I can identify that person. So if it's a cell phone number, I can phone the number and I can talk to the patient. An address, you don't know who your assessor is. It might be someone that is that lives in the same town or same area where you are. They can drive to that person's house. So anything that can make it easy for us to identify someone should be blocked out or obscured. Okay, so now you are ready to start this stepwise approach. But you need to remember, firstly, you need to choose a domain, and then you need to choose a competency standard. But now we are going to provide you some tips and comments to assist you to choose the appropriate competency standard from each domain. And it's important that it is only a decision-making aid that we provide to you. And you will see we have said that a competency standard is either recommended or possible or challenging. So if we say it is recommended, it means it's a good choice and it shouldn't present any problems for the intern to complete that specific competency standard. If we say it's possible, then you need to consider it very carefully and only choose it if you are able to collect valid and sufficient evidence. And then if we say it's challenging, we should actually just say avoid, because that will be extremely difficult to complete with sufficient evidence. And there are competency standards that an intern cannot do. Remember, as Mrs. Nadia said at the beginning, the competency standards and the domains is for all pharmacists of all with different, with varying years of experience. So some of it you can only do if you're a manager or an RP of a facility and not if you're just an intern. So make sure that your chosen competency standard is appropriate for your practice setting. Okay, we're going to go through all the domains, but I'm just going to go quickly through them. So domain 1, public health, we only recommend 1.1 and 1.6. But remember, for 1.1, it's about public health, and 1.6, you need to include the screening activity. I would strongly advise you to, after the presentation or after this workshop, once the presentation is loaded on Council's website, to go back and to look at this slides again and go and mark them for you in your manual so that you know 1.1 or 1.6 and read the behavioral statements and don't attempt the others. It is really challenging to do some of the other competency standards, specifically if you're an intern. Domain 2, we have 3 that we recommend. 2.1, it's but there you must include the patient in the discussion because it's consultation. 2.2 is counseling. It's also recommended, but make sure that your evidence is sufficient because there's a lot of, I think there's 9 behavioral statements. And then 2.6, which is pharmacist-initiated therapy, that's also recommended. Don't attempt 2.8 if you do not, if you are not involved in a registered clinical trial. So rather attempt 2.1, 2.2, or 2.6. Then for domain 3, medicines and medical devices, if you are in manufacturing, then 3.1 is possible for you to do. 3.2 we recommend, 3.4 we recommend, but make sure that you cover all the dispensing activities. 3.5 is also recommended, but you must include the discussion on application of pharmaceutical principles. And then you can include bulk or extemporaneous compounding, in other words, patient-specific compounding. 3.6 is also possible, but a lot of interns that attempt 3.6 is not successful because if you are not actually exposed to a medicine recall, then it's very difficult to get sufficient evidence. There's only 3 behavioral statements, so then it becomes a challenge. In domain 4, the only one that's recommended is 4.6, but it's important that you must differentiate between policies and SOPs. And look in the manual for the definition of a policy and an SOP, and as well as a list of possible policies that you can use. And important here is you must show us how you have applied the policy and how you have applied the SOP. And that, with that being said, the complete SOP, not just 3 or 4 steps in the SOP, but the complete SOP. Domain 5, we have the compulsory 5.3 that you should do, so the rest is not allowed. And then domain 6, we recommend 6.2. That is providing training and education, and that is to pharmacy personnel or other healthcare professionals, or 6.6, which is research. 6.3 is possible, but that is only applicable to formal training of undergraduate pharmacy students. So if you are an academic intern, then you can attempt 6.3. But for the rest of you interns, I will recommend 6.2 or 6.6. Okay, so now you are ready to complete the CPD cycle. Remember, you have to complete all 4 steps in the cycle. And now we're going to do the same, what we did with the chosen competency standards, those that we recommend. But we are going to give you some guidelines pertaining to some of the evidence you might need for that competency standards. Remember, very important, this is just a guideline. This is not the complete list of evidence, so it's just a guideline. So we said 1.1 is recommended, but here it's important to show how, provide the information. How did you use the poster to promote health? Your evidence here could include an attendance register. And remember, a public health campaign is not just one or two patients. And most often, if you do a proper health campaign, it is structured over more than one day. But yes. And then if you do 1.6, the other one that was recommended, then we would like to see a screening tool. If you select 1.4, which is challenging, then you will have to show us a full pharmacoeconomic study with analysis of outcomes, the knowledge of the pharmacoeconomic terms. So it's not just submitting a prescription and do genetic substitution. That would not be sufficient. So you will have then to have the full pharmacoeconomic study. So you see it's very challenging. So stick to 1.1 or 1.6. For domain 2, we recommended 2.1, 2.2, and 2.6. So 2.1, consultation, the nature of the problem that the patient had, the consultation area, the duration of the consultation, the language that you use, sensitive and insensitive issues. So that is what you have to look at regarding evidence. 2.2, counseling. We want to see a counseling plan. We want to see the patient's feedback on understanding, that they understand the counseling you provided. How did you handle sensitive issues? How did you determine the need for the counseling? The patient did not know, he was newly diagnosed. Any type of evidence that can support that. If you select 2.6, pharmacist-initiated therapy, you could include information pamphlet that relates to the condition. Often interns don't address behavioral statement D, where you have to refer a patient when needed. So a referral letter should be provided. To whom is it addressed? What was the reason for referral? We want to see a patient history, the complete history with the signs and symptoms and the complaints that the patient have. Blue copy. So there's, as I've said, this list is not exhaustive. You must add, this is just a guideline. Then we move to domain 3. We recommended 3.2, 3.4, and 3.5. Remember, with 3.4, it's a long, it's 9 behavioral statements. So there's a lot of aspects that you need to cover and activities that you need to show. So there we can include the prescription. Remember, one of the behavioral statements is perform pharmaceutical calculations. If you calculate the number of tablets that you need to dispense for a month and the patient needs to take 1 tablet per day, then that is not a pharmaceutical calculation. Pharmaceutical calculation is more related to dilutions. If you have to compound a cream with a solid and a liquid that you have to weigh and measure, and so it's more complex than just calculating the number of tablets. 3.5 was also recommended. It's important that you include evidence to show us that you understand pharmaceutical knowledge. And remember, and I'm saying it here, and please make a note, remember that the expiry date for any extemporaneous compounding product should not exceed 30 days. That is according to legislation. So make sure about that. If we move to domain 4, we said 4.6 is recommended. And as I've stated previously, you need to show application of both policies and SOPs to achieve policy development. And again, go to page 40 in the manual and look there, see what is a SOP, what is a policy, and there's also a list of policies that you can use. Please consult the manual. Domain 5, we said 5.3 is the compulsory one. So obviously here you will include extracts of the applicable acts or the legislation and the code of conduct, and they all should be annotated. You will see behavioral statement C talks about keeping abreast of changes in legislation. It means using current or recently amended legislation. So how did you use that current or recently amended legislation? And with recently amended, we don't mean Regulation 33 that was in 2018. That is a bit old. So there's always amendments or updates. And where did you look for those updates? Show us, where did you go to look for the updates, and then show us how you applied the other updates. Remember your annotated professional indemnity certificate. That is important, and you can include evidence for more than one activity. Interns always think that 5.3 ethical and legal practice, they should only focus on Schedule 6. But there's a lot more that you can do with ethical and legal practice than just Schedule 6. In domain 6, we said 6.2 is recommended and 6.6. So remember, 6.2 is about providing training and education. So you need to include the evidence that that there was an agreed upon training plan. And it's the behavioral statement also said with the guide of a more experienced colleague. So you must clarify that role. Who was that more experienced colleague? And then 6.6 is the research one. It's also recommended. So for 6.6, you need to submit a complete research project with results, not only the proposal. And you must show evidence of approval of the proposal or the protocol. So typically A is the behavioral statement. A is the elements of a proposal. So typically there you will give us the document that indicate what should be in a good research proposal, and you give then your proposal or protocol, which you link then to that resource that you had. And then B, you need to show us that you can do research according to approved protocol. So then we want to see how you have executed that protocol, that research that you did, and include results. That is very important. Let's quickly talk about 4.6, which is policy development. This is a recommended competency standard, but interns typically struggle and have trouble with this competency standard. So in the 2026 manual, we have included extra information to facilitate the differentiation between what is a policy and what is an SOP. So a policy is a set of guidelines, whilst an SOP is a set of written instructions. So the policy just guides you. The SOP say this is the steps that you need to follow. And here's a list of applicable policies. Sanitation policy, health and safety policy, security, post-exposure policy, HIV/AIDS policy. Remember, very, very important, the GPP is not a policy. It's a good pharmacy practice manual guideline. It is not a policy document. Okay, so we move to, I almost think that this might be the last poll. So let's quickly just look at this poll. Okay, so this is challenges that you might have experienced during your internship thus far. So during this, the 3 months that you have been registered as an intern, maybe some of you registered already last year. So what is the common challenges that you have experienced during your internship? if you can, I will give you a minute or so to think about that, and to type that out. Then we can have a look at that before we move on to challenges experience that we have received or that we know of that interns experience. And that's yes, let's look at the poll results. Okay, collecting evidence in general, a lack of clear communication regarding requirements for academic interns. Time to do the portfolio of evidence, planning of CPDs, work-life balance, busy hospital environment make it difficult, little time, attendance registers showing absent even after attending the workshops, and finding time, intense work ethic that is hard to replicate as I'm still learning, dealing with rude or difficult patients, time management, balancing work and CPDs. Collecting evidence, being broke and it's graduation season. Time to do CPDs, completing CPDs. So balanced and time management, it seems as that is some of the biggest issues that you have. And then to find the evidence. So yes, planning during your intern year is very important, that you have good time management and good planning skills. So some of the challenges that was identified by tutors was lack of planning capabilities, non-independent thinking, lack of independent learning ability, insufficient preparation, and then also regarding skills, communication, adaptability, creativity, teamwork, time management, as we've said, and then the attitude. No sense of responsibility, lack of passion, low morale, mental issues that's on the rise, lack of enthusiasm. And this was, challenges that was identified by tutors during the assessors and moderators Lekgotla of 2024 and last year. And then there's also some tutor challenges, assessment versus compliance of submission, limited time, non-standardized approach, limited tutor support, disconnect between learning and practical work, no incentives, malicious compliance due to intern incongruency. There was a tutor workshop. There was 2 tutor workshops also held in February for tutors specifically. But from this, we can just see that it is important for the interns to talk to the tutors, to communicate with them, to do proper planning. And if you experience any issues with your health, mental health or otherwise, it's important to talk to your tutor or the responsible pharmacist where you are working, so that they can assist you in time, so that you don't so that your internship is not extended. And it's important, finally, you need to learn, you need to experience, develop, then you will succeed, and then you will become a true lifelong learner. And by doing your portfolio of evidence activities during your internship here will already help you to get into that rhythm of completing your CPDs every year. We would like you to complete the attendance register and the survey. It will also be posted in the chat section. And again, the conference, Tabang spoke about it. And then if you need to, there's a WhatsApp channel where council share the latest updates and announcement. It's not an interactive WhatsApp line. In other words, you cannot send messages to council, but you will be able to see the latest updates, the board notices, SAPC, e-notes, etc. So you can scan the QR code to follow that WhatsApp channel to stay up to date and informed. And then we will give some time for questions. I'm just going to go back to the attendance register. But yes, that's all from my side.
Thank you, Rianda. And this brings us to the end of our second presentation. So now we time for question and answers. And I will hand over to the communications team to lead us. Thank you.
Thanks, Tabang. For the interns joining us this evening, if you're joining us on Teams, please post your questions in the Q&A section. If you're joining us on YouTube, please type your questions in the comment section. We will copy them over and read them out. Our first question. Hi, with evidence submitted, should prescriber details also be blanked out?
Okay, I'll answer that question. No, as I've said, prescriber details should not be blocked out. It is available on the HPCSA website. So it's only applicable to patients unless it was a huge mistake that the doctor made and it could have resulted in the death of the patient and you don't want that to come out, then yes, but usually no, only patients. Thank you.
Is it appropriate to take the picture showing only the back of the attendees and me in front presenting?
Natalie, yes, that is appropriate as long as we can't see the faces of the audience. That'll be fine.
So in planning, can I link like evidence 3-1-1D?
Yes. If you don't need to, in the planning, link it to the evidence, but you can link it, but you should link it to the behavioral statements. In the or in the implementation section, there you can link it like this, as the question was posted. Evidence 3 and then 1.1D. That would be acceptable. Thank you.
For 2.6, how am I expected to show signs and symptoms?
Natalie, there's various ways. The intern can either make a patient information sheet where they fill in the symptoms and the patient signs that, or if it's something like a skin condition, they can include some photographs of that. So depending on the condition, the signs and symptoms will vary, but if the patient fill in a patient information form with the history, the medication history, the symptoms, and the patient and the intern signs that, that can also be sufficient.
Is it acceptable for me to complete an activity at a different site? If so, does the supervision and sign-off need to be done specifically by my assigned tutor or a pharmacist at the site?
Okay, thank you, Nat. Okay,
Dr. Mark?
Rianda, I can go through. Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Natalie. So the activities need to be completed where the intern is placed. Otherwise, there should have been an arrangement with the tutor, like maybe when the intern is going for 400 hours, or maybe there is an arrangement to go do things like patient-initiated therapy. But in that case, there should be arrangements wherein the tutor is aware of where the patient is and who will be supervising the patient at that moment and for what purpose. Thank you. You can add, Rianda. Thank you.
Dr. Bong, I think you've covered everything.
Okay.
This one links onto the previous one, I think. Is it allowed for other pharmacists that I'm working with to sign on my evidence, as the assigned tutors sometimes get very busy and cannot do all the activities with us?
Yes, that is allowed. If you are working in the pharmacy and for that specific activity, another pharmacist does the sign off. Remember, your tutor still verifies the activity. So if you did that specific activity under another pharmacist, they can sign the evidence and your tutor will still verify online.
I have passed the CPDs I have submitted, but haven't received any comments or feedback from my marker, despite not achieving full marks for each of the components of the rubric.
Actually, I think we're all waiting for you to maybe reread it, because past as a verb, or what is that, past as in move past or past? Because if they have, then I'm not sure what, if you can just reread the question, please.
Sure, it's passed as in not failed. I have passed the CPDs I have submitted, but haven't received any comments or feedback from my marker, despite not achieving full marks for each of the components of the rubric.
I'm gonna try.
I think you're gonna try.
Malolu.
No,
No,
you try.
Malolu, you go.
I'm assuming that if you have successfully passed, meaning that the outcome says you are competent, we're not sure what else you would want, because if you're successful, then that's what we're looking for. And if you've met the minimum requirements, then you are successful. So maybe you can try, Rianda. I'm not sure if I really totally get the question, because when you have not met the minimum requirements, then the outcome would not be successful, and then you'd be required to make some corrections, and their comments would be provided. Maybe you'd have to contact us directly at the office so we can understand better your situation, Rianda. But please I'm asking you to come in and try.
Okay. Thanks, Malolu. Okay, so if we assess or moderate, we must either select requirement fully met, then it's obviously fully met, or there is met, which means you have achieved the outcomes. If it's partially met, we cannot continue to the next step without providing comments. And that is where, I mean, you can still be successful in your activity, but for requirement or for partially met, you would have had a comment on what you should add. You can have all of them partially met and still be successful. But then there should be comments. We cannot move on unless it is a system error. I have experienced it where I have seen assessments where it was partially met and I couldn't see the comment of the assessor. So that can also happen. But that is why Malolu said maybe you should contact the office and explain to them. Maybe they can assist you. Maybe there was some kind of a system error on council side. But yes, if it's met or fully met, then it's not compulsory. We can move on. I usually, if I moderate and I see it was requirement met, then I will say it was accepted as complete. So yes, I hope it gives a bit clarity. I'm not sure.
If my registration began on March 10th, will I be eligible to write the exam in August?
Um,
I,
thank you,
okay, you want to
Nat.
take it,
Okay.
Taban? Right.
No,
You can go.
take it, Malala. All right. So, when I was presenting, I said interns can sit for the exam when they are in their 6th month of internship. So it's just an issue of counting. If you started on the 10th of March, in August you'll be in your 5th month, so you won't qualify to sit for the August exam. Thank you.
And maybe just to add, Tabang, that the counting works in reverse. So remember, there are progress reports other than just having been registered on the 10th of March that are needing to be submitted as you do the tasks. And those progress reports have got weeks that go along with it, for example. And then there's also a minimum requirement of portfolio of evidence that you need to be competent in. So all of that together and the booking of the examination, because it's got booking slots, wherein if you miss the booking slot, then you wouldn't be able to be eligible. So it's the counting of all of those components, and where you get confused, you can always contact the office to assist you. Thank you. And the release of the portfolio of evidence, the outcome, so that you can then be eligible to book for the exam. Thank you.
Must academic internship only do 400 hours at a registered training facility, or can the hours be done at any A or B grade pharmacy?
Rianda, do you want to come in, or Adele?
Yes, Malalu. Academic interns should also work in a pharmacy that is approved for training. So they should check on the register and make sure that it is an approved pharmacy for practical training.
If I only manage to register as an intern after having started my internship, for example, I started in Feb but only managed to register in March, does my internship end in Feb as per when I started, or in March as per when I registered?
So the start of internship is the registration. There is no prior start if it's not the registration date. So everything else would have been a build up to the actual registration. So that start date that you have is your official start date. And the release will be like aligned 12 months, assuming that you meet all the other components sufficient for you to be released after 12 months. Thank you.
Thanks, Malala. We'll wait another minute to see if any further questions come through. It looks like that was the last question. If you would like to close for us, Tabang or Malalo.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Let me take this opportunity to thank all the intern and tutors who managed to join us this evening. And I just want to wish you all your best with your internship year. And I also want to thank assessor and moderator who were with us today to assist with the presentation, as well as the colleagues from their office to ensure that everything is going on well. And I just also want to thank you for everything. And with those few words, I wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, ish.